When you picture a fossil, you picture bone. A skeleton in a museum hall, clean and bleached and wired together, every rib on display. And that's fair, because bone is almost always all that's left. Skin, muscle, fat, guts, eyes, the last meal sitting in the stomach, all of it rots away in days or weeks, long before the slow work of fossilization can begin. The soft parts of an animal are, in the deep time sense, written in disappearing ink. Almost always. Because every so often, vanishingly rarely, the stars align, and an animal is preserved not as a skeleton, but as itself. Skin still stretched over the body, scales you can count, armor still locked in place, guts still holding a final meal. Specimens so complete, so intact, that the paleontologists who find them don't reach for the word fossil. They reach for a different word entirely: mummy. And when you see one, the effect is deeply strange, because it doesn't look like something that died 100 million years ago. It looks like something you'd swerve to avoid on the highway. It looks like roadkill. Today, I want to show you those animals, the ones that beat the odds and kept their skin. And there is no better place to start than with the single most spectacular of them all, an animal so well preserved that one of the researchers said you could almost believe it was sleeping. In 2011, at a mine in Alberta, Canada, a heavy equipment operator named Sean Funk was digging through rock when his excavator struck something that wasn't rock. It was hard, and it broke apart into strange, patterned lumps. He'd hit fossils and old marine reptiles before, but this was different. What he had accidentally cut into was the front half of a dinosaur that had died 110 million years earlier. And it was unlike almost anything ever found. Its name is Borealopelta. It was a nodosaur, a heavily armoured, tank-like plant-eater, about 18 feet long and over a ton, covered head to tail in bony plates and spikes. And here's the miraculous part. Those plates were still in place. Not scattered, not collapsed, arranged exactly as they had been in life, still embedded in fossilized skin. When you look at Borealopelta, you are not looking at a reconstruction or an artist's guess. You are looking at the actual outline of the living animal, its armor, its scales, its shape, preserved in 3 dimensions. And it gets better, because a technician named Mark Mitchell spent over 7,000 hours, more than 5 years of work, painstakingly freeing it from the stone, which is why the animal now carries his name. His patience paid off in ways nobody expected. The preservation was so fine that scientists could detect the animal's actual pigment, the chemical traces of its colouring. And they found that Borealopelta had been a reddish-brown on top and paler underneath. That's a lighting trick called countershading, still used by animals today for camouflage. And it tells us something profound. A 2-ton armoured tank still needed to hide. Which means that 110 million years ago, there were predators terrifying enough that even this animal, wrapped in bone, was trying not to be seen. And they even recovered its last meal. Inside its gut was the fossilized content of its final feeding, chewed up ferns, telling us not just what it ate, but that it had been browsing on a specific plant in its final hours. A creature's last lunch, preserved for 110 million years. Now, Borealopelta is the crown jewel. But it turns out that one particular kind of dinosaur mummifies more readily than any other, the duck-billed hadrosaurs. and the most famous of them has a name as plain as they come: Dakota. Dakota is an Edmontosaurus, a large hadrosaur, around 40 feet long, found in North Dakota, and it preserves vast sheets of fossilized skin across its limbs and tail. And Dakota rewrote the rulebook because it broke a long-standing assumption about how these mummies even form. The old idea was simple. To preserve skin, a body has to be buried fast before anything can touch it. But Dakota's skin carries bite marks and possible claw marks from at least 2 different carnivores. It had been scavenged. It had lain out in the open for weeks, maybe months, drying in the sun while predators tore at it. And it's still fossilized with its skin intact. As the lead researcher put it, conventional wisdom said Dakota shouldn't exist. And yet, there it is. That drying out process is actually the key to the whole phenomenon, and the hadrosaurs show it beautifully. The very first dinosaur mummy ever found, an Edmontosaurus dug up in Wyoming back in 1908, was preserved because it dried out completely before burial, the skin shrinking and tightening down onto the bones. When they found it, the skin was drawn so snugly over the skeleton that they could see the texture in fine detail. 2 different types of scales, and even a soft frill of skin running along its neck that nobody had known these animals had. That single specimen reshaped how we picture the entire group. And here's a lovely twist from just this year, 2025. Paleontologists went back to that same region of Wyoming and found what they've started calling a mummy zone, an area producing multiple exceptional specimens, including more Edmontosaurus mummies and remarkably preserved examples of their neighbours, Triceratops and Tyrannosaurus. It turns out these mummies may not be quite as freakishly rare as we thought. In the right kind of environment, they cluster, which is a genuinely exciting thought. It means there are almost certainly more of them still out there, waiting in the Badlands. But dinosaurs, for all their drama, have one disadvantage in the preservation game. They're old. Tens of millions of years is a long time for anything soft to survive, even fossilized. So if you want to see preservation that truly looks like roadkill, that looks fresh, you have to come forward in time to the Ice Age. And you have to go somewhere cold. Because the Arctic permafrost is a natural freezer, and it has given us animals that aren't fossils at all in the usual sense. They're frozen. Actual flesh, actual fur, actual blood, held in suspended animation for tens of thousands of years. The most beautiful of them is a baby woolly mammoth named Lyuba. She was found in Siberia in 2007 by a reindeer herder and his sons, and she is the best preserved mammoth ever discovered. She died around 42,000 years ago at just over a month old. And she is essentially complete. Her skin, her trunk, her eyes, her internal organs, all still there. Scientists could examine the milk still in her stomach from her mother. They could identify the cause of her death. She appears to have suffocated on mud while crossing a river, and, grimly, that very mud, packed into her airways, is part of what preserved her, along with acidic conditions that pickled her body and kept scavengers and bacteria away. She looks less like an ancient specimen and more like a sleeping animal. You look at Lyuba and you don't feel the distance of 42,000 years. You feel like you're looking at something that died last week. And she's not alone. The permafrost has yielded frozen woolly rhinos with their horns and fur still attached. It's produced Ice Age wolf pups and cave lion cubs so perfectly preserved that their whiskers are still intact their tiny paws still soft. There's a foal, a baby horse from around 40,000 years ago, recovered so complete that researchers found liquid blood still inside its body. Liquid blood from an animal that died before humans had reached most of the planet. And it doesn't stop at mammals. The permafrost has coughed up frozen birds and, astonishingly, it has produced living organisms. Scientists thawed ancient nematode worms out of the Siberian permafrost that had been frozen for around 46,000 years, and the worms woke up. They started moving and reproducing. Life, quite literally, on pause for 46,000 years, and then simply resumed. Now, what all of these have in common, the mammoths, the mummies, the frozen cubs, is a specific recipe. To beat decay, you need to remove one of the things decay depends on. Cold does it, by freezing the bacteria into inactivity. Dryness does it, by starving them of the water they need. That's the desert mummy route, the hadrosaur route. A lack of oxygen does it too, which is why we also find astonishingly preserved creatures at the bottoms of ancient stagnant lakes and in the airless heart of peat bogs. Any environment hostile enough to microbial life becomes a vault. And I want to leave you with the reason all of this actually matters, beyond the sheer wonder of it. Because a skeleton tells you the frame of an animal, but a mummy tells you the animal. Borealopelta told us its true colour and that it lived in fear. Dakota told us that our neat theories about fossilization were too simple. The hadrosaur mummies told us these animals had frills and scale patterns we'd never have guessed from bone. Lyuba told us what a baby mammoth ate and exactly how one died. These specimens hand us the soft, living, breathing details that bone alone can never give. The things that turn an extinct animal from a diagram back into a creature. And they are out there still. In the badlands of the American West, in the melting permafrost of the far north, more of these are waiting to be found. Which means that somewhere, right now, buried in rock or locked in ice, there is an animal that has kept its skin for 100 million years, lying in the dark, waiting for someone to swerve, look twice, and realize what they've just driven past. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep looking up.